We will now move on to our next panel discussion. And we have Shefali Tripathi Mehta in conversation with Shanta Gokhale here.
Yeah, but just a moment, Santaji is one of mentors of Indian Novels Collective. Santaji, namaskar, Ashwini, on behalf of Indian Novels Collective. We are very blessed. We are blessed with your support. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Yes, do we have Shefali and yes?
Yes, we do. Can I introduce the session and them?
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Lasya. So the next session that we have is called The Ocean in the Closet, Writing and Reading Between the Lines. Shanta Tai's revolutionary play, Avinash or novel Rita Welinkar, normalizes the need for mental health care and addresses the perception issue way before awareness of mental health even featured in Indian writing. She would be in conversation with Shefali Tripathi Mehta, author of Stuck Like Lint and People on the Roof. So a little bit about Shanta Tai. Shanta Gokhale is an acclaimed novelist, playwright, translator, critic, columnist, and theater historian. She was honored with the Sangeet Natak Academy Award in 2015 and the Lifetime Achievement Award at the Tata Literature Live Festival in 2019. Shefali Tripathi Mehta is a novelist, poet, and a social worker. She writes on disability awareness, social issues, travel, and parenting, and her latest book, People on the Roof, has just been released. Thank you, Shefali, for agreeing to moderate this session. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Mansi. Hello, good afternoon, and namaskara, as we say in these parts. Shanta ma'am, welcome. It's my privilege to be talking to you today. And we shall be discussing mental health issues with reference to two of your works, the play Avinash and the novel Rita Welinkar. So, so this last 1 year has been quite trying for most of us, and there has been an unprecedented surge in mental health issues, which makes this all the more relevant talking about it now. And let me begin by asking you something I've already told you that, this you wrote this in 1988 and I read it in 2021, and nothing has changed in these 33 years. Not the shame that the family of Avinash feels, not the fact that they think marriage would cure him, or that it is a result of an evil eye. So there is a lot of not just ignorance, but also misinformation. And and this stops people with mental health issues and their families to seek professional help. What do you think can be done to to normalize this, so to say?
Oh, I think that question isn't for me to answer, because I'm not a professional. Right. I'm a writer. So I have included in my play perceptions, general perceptions about mental health. Right. And what is it in my life that pushed me to look at a person who is suffering from mental illness and his family? What was it? So no creative writing comes out of nowhere. Yeah. It has its roots in the reality around us. So a few incidents in my life, in the circle around me, had been piling up, unknown to me, in my mind. And the most terrifying and the most moving happened way back when I was still at school. And I had gone over to have tea with a friend of mine. And Suddenly, in the middle of our chatter, I heard this kind of peculiar animal kind of sound of somebody I thought was protesting, somebody who possibly was in pain. And I thought there is an ill person in the house. So I said to my friend, "Oh my God, who is that?" And she said extremely calmly, "We have a retarded sister, younger to me, and we tie her up in her bedroom because we can't bring her out. And if we don't tie her up, she wanders all over the place and it disturbs outsiders," which was me. And I was horribly disturbed as it is by this. Now, that animal kind of sound stayed with me over the years, and gradually a whole lot of incidents kind of got added on. And the most surprising and shocking was a colleague of mine whose daughter was slow, and she told me once, and she's a social worker. She was in my office in the position of a social worker. Her husband was a surgeon. And she said, "We are going to have her exorcised." And I said, "You can't be serious." So she said, "No, let's try everything." So you can't say that it's misinformation. I think very often with the middle class in particular, there is a lack of acceptance because there is such a stigma on mental illness that you refuse to believe that one of yours could be affected. And if you are not accepting, then you're not looking for cures.
Right.
You're looking for escapes of this kind.
Yes.
Now, in Avinash, I had this in my mind of a person who's closed away from society. So Avinash is behind a partition, but this is a play. And the idea was that this partition is so lit up that its shadow falls on the acting space where the rest of the family is living its own life. And so it's a family under this shadow, and each one is then trying to find a way to deal with this problem. So only one of them has a rational solution, which he is looking for. Otherwise, it's evil eye. Ultimately, it's God. God as a solution really doesn't work. God is solace, not solution. So these are the various ways in which people respond to mental illness. And the point is that the person who is suffering is never at the center. It is everyone else who is thinking how they can relieve themselves of this problem. So, it's very sad. And I'll tell you, way after I wrote this play, you said something about how things are still the same. Years after I wrote the play, a neighbor of mine whose mother, he was our playmate. his mother used to be auntie so-and-so to us. And suddenly something went wrong. I have no idea. She was out on the streets. The family had just sent her out, and she used to wander around in our neighborhood, and people would say mad woman. And this was a neighbor of ours. And this was sometime in the late 1990s.
Yes, like you said, it is very sad. And both of these characters had, one sibling that was sympathetic, who had who supported them, right? So one can't help notice that there is a progression from Avinash to Rita. In Avinash, we feel the helplessness that he feels, which is conveyed to us through his wife Vasudha, that he asks her to go back to her parents' house, and he believes that he's not going to be cured and he cannot be helped. Whereas in Rita Welinkar, she has a nervous breakdown, she goes to hospital, she's treated and comes back and resumes work, and she's all the more stronger for the experience, it seems, and she's made up her mind to get in control and set things right. So was this is this indicative of how things around you were changing, or how you were changing yourself? Was it a conscious decision to be hopeful and positive in the case of Rita?
We have to differentiate between Avinash's condition,
right,
which is a condition,
right,
and Rita's nervous breakdown,
right,
which is an episode,
right,
which occurs in her life.
right.
And whereas in Avinash, I deliberately chose not to try and analyze what Avinash's problem was.
Right.
In Rita, it is very clear that it is a constant build-up through what her family, what she suffered in her family, what she suffers in her relationship. And it is this kind of build-up that finally under which she cracks. Now, the fact is that because it's an episode and she puts her fist through her mirror because she wants to break up her image, she doesn't want to face herself. So it becomes a case for the hospital. Right. So it's not as if someone is saying, oh dear, now what do we do? Now we have a case on hand. It is a crisis, you can see it. And the man in her life instinctively takes her to hospital. Right. And once she is there, then she is on her way to being cured. The point I make there, which when you say positive response, hers, is because she has been a very strong woman and she needs to restore herself to what she was. And she is told by her doctor, because she's writing this long letter to her school friend about what's been happening in her life. And the doctor, who is on his rounds, says, what are you doing? And she says, well, just writing. And he says, that is excellent therapy. Right. He says it to her. And to let things out, to talk to people, to communicate with them is a way of helping whatever the doctor is doing for you. Right. And instinctively, she is doing this for herself. And she has 2 women with her who will help her through. That is also important, that you have love and understanding. You can't do it on your own. So her younger sister and her school friend are with her through this period of her life. And that's how she gets over it. Perhaps one may say that if she didn't have this help or this kind of solidarity, she possibly may not have come out of it. We know lots of people who are unable to come out.
Right.
So in that sense, it's positive, yes.
Right. Yeah, so before I come to that, image that where just before she shatters the mirror, when she draws those lipstick flowers on herself, it was that point for me, you know, very intense. Yeah. But coming to this circle of friends that you mentioned, Sangeeta and Saraswati, and I mean, they support her and she also supports them. She opens her house to them, that, you know, they can work. I mean, giving Saraswati a place to write, it was, you know, things that, so this kind of support of women by women is celebrated these days. And do you think, instead of, you know, the parents and families saying, make the marriage work, compromise, do this, we should work more on, men or women, they should, do you think we should work more on these kind of friendships that help our mental health? I think you've already answered that, but, you know, this is also something that struck me. If you want to add something to it.
Yeah, you know, it's not, you can't make relationships consciously.
Right.
You can't say to yourself, now I want solidarity, so now I will have these people. No, these are things that happen in the course of life. Now, this school friend, for instance, Saraswati, Rita has lost touch with her over the years. They were very close at one time. But somehow something tells you that of all your friends, of all your relatives, this is one person with whom you had the kind of bond which you haven't shared with others. So it is possible to start off where you left off. And so it happens. She isn't sure that Saraswati is going to read the letter and respond to her call, but Saraswati does. And she comes, and from then on, they are together, sharing problems. But it's not something that really can be done consciously. Mm-hmm. There are people, for instance, who are loners. They aren't able to communicate, and that's one kind of mental illness. Right. And things like Asperger's disease, right, etc., right, or autism.
Right.
People can't have social relationships.
Right. Yes.
So what do? No conscious effort will bring them friends. So there are shades and shades of.
Right. Yes. I just like to say, if any of you have any questions for Shanta ma'am, you can send it to us. And ma'am, if I may ask a personal question. So a lot of us, for us, writing is therapeutic, and in this, you know, or for some others it may be painting or gardening or whatever. So what is that one thing that you turn to again and again in this past year of the so-called social isolation? Was there one thing except writing that helped you, you know?
Well, since it's a personal question,
yeah,
I will say that I am not such a social creature.
Okay, yes.
I love the home. And all my life, I have struggled to find time for my writing and reading.
Right.
And the most cruelest time of our lives, which is this horrible virus, which has killed so many. And I'm constantly conscious of how it has affected people, destroyed their lives. But I have to say, for me, it's been a blessing. I do not get uncalled for visitors. I'm not interrupted. I have set for myself a perfect routine of writing. Novel in the morning, translation in the afternoon, short stories in the evening. And at the end, I'm a very satisfied writer. So there's no thing like one thing which I look for. I look for all of it. I'm very greedy of my time. If you give me 24 hours, I want 24 hours in which to write.
Yeah, very inspirational. What can I say to that? So, but the arts, would you advise people to engage with the arts more, since one gets to express the self more through whatever we do, some painting or some writing or music. Isn't it a good outlet? I mean, more people should do it, right?
You advise, I don't advise. I
I'm
never
the one to
advise
advise.
people. I think people know exactly what to do
Yes.
as their relaxation. I mean, there are people who will watch mindless TV.
Yes. Yes.
I have nothing to say. It's for them to decide.
Yeah.
And in any case, people who love art, who love music, will seek it out.
Right.
Don't want me to say, yes, go and see art.
Yes, that's true. Mansi, are there any audience questions? Okay, there is one. In your writing, how do you work on addressing the gender difference in mental health? Ma'am,
As I said, I'm a writer. Writers raise questions. Writers seek answers through their work. So therefore, we can't say do this or do that. That's for the professional psychologists to say. But gender-wise, I mean, knowing that there is a difference made constantly between girls and boys and men and women, I think as far as mental illness is concerned, it's much more difficult for families to accept it in their sons, because the sons are going to carry on their name.
Yes.
They are the ones who are going to make them proud. So they had better be mentally healthy. My own cousin, whose son was brilliant, IIT, on to America, on to a great job. At one point, his mind split. And it happened. There are always triggers, various triggers, but the condition was probably there, waiting to be triggered. My cousin couldn't accept it. And therefore, he didn't push his son to go for a cure. He also turned to God. And now my nephew, pushed by his own daughters, is under treatment, but his father couldn't accept it. So I think in this case, perhaps boys are, in a sense, more neglected. As far as girls are concerned, okay, she's mad.
Yeah.
That's the end. We'll find her something to do. And yet, I must say, there are parents who are so magnificent. I know a couple who have twin daughters with Down syndrome, and they have made them independent. They have set up for them a business which both of them are capable of running. And it's really wonderful to see this. So there are solutions. There's one kind of parent, there's another kind.
Right, right. There is another question by one of the viewers watching this program. In your writing, how do you work on addressing the gender difference in mental health? I think you said that.
Yeah.
How it manifests for those wanting to write about mental health and their experience. What is the one suggestion you would give to those trying to express in words something that is so invisibilized?
Yeah, that's difficult to do. It's extremely, because you have to go through a series of barriers. First barrier, do you really want to talk about it? Do you really want the world to know about it? And if so, why? Is it because you feel that your experience might help others to deal better with their experience? And if that is your motive, then it's an extremely positive impulse, and you will find a way to talk about it. It's important to remember that you are not, in that sense, a writer. You are not looking for fine phrases and good sounding words or anything. So you're just writing from your heart, and you are writing about what happened in your family or what happened to you. So it takes a little while to untie all these knots which are in yourself, and to get a clear perspective on why you want to write about it. Once that's done, I think the words flow. You write as you talk.
Yeah. And I guess you just hope that your readers will reflect on the, similar situations when faced with, right?
Yeah. Sure.
So, yeah. I don't see any more questions.
Shefali, there are some questions in the Q&A box, if you can see on the right. Yeah, and there's also one more question from Sneha Pathak.
Sneha Pathak is asking, yeah, please go ahead. Are you reading that?
You want me to read the question out?
Please, yes.
So when it comes, this question is about Shanta ma'am. As a writer, we are still somewhat stuck when it comes to our attitudes towards mental health. Why do you think that is happening?
Sorry, can you repeat the first part, please?
Okay, so it says when it comes, we are somewhat still stuck on our attitudes towards mental health. Why do you think, as a writer, that is happening to your writing? How have you explored?
No, I haven't addressed that kind of question. As I said, I write fiction, but as a layperson, I would say that there has to be around you a lot more conversation about mental health.
Right.
It is only just starting out.
Yes.
And I think the important thing which is happening now is for people in the public eye to accept that they suffer from a mental condition. When someone up there who is famous and wealthy and beautiful says that she has a problem. It does allow other people, so-called lesser people, to think if it can happen to her, it's happening to me. And she is not ashamed to talk about it in public. Perhaps there's no shame attaching to it. So basically, it's getting over the shame. And I really think that in so many cases where individuals suffer, it's because our society is like that. We are surrounded by people who will point fingers at you, who will call you all sorts of names and make sure that you don't come out of your condition. So society by large is not very helpful towards anyone who is supposedly different.
Right. Yes.
It could be different in color, it could be different in social class, in our country, very much by caste.
Yes. Yes.
There are all layers and layers of exclusion. And mental health is just simply one of them. And that's why we are stuck, because our society refuses to talk about these things. We are brought up to say, hush, don't give out family secrets.
Right.
So as long as that kind of culture continues, we will not have open conversations about any of these things.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Would you like me to read the next question also, Shefali?
Okay, go ahead, please.
Can you spot any questions, and would you like to?
Okay, so I'll ask this question, ma'am. How do you think the approaches adopted by Indian literature towards acknowledging mental health concerns have evolved over time? In what way have they been instrumental in spreading more awareness and empathy? I mean, even if with respect
There
to
are two parts.
Yes, yes. How has it
evolved?
Evolved,
to
and
answer that question, I need to know the history of literature and of how many languages do we have in the world. That many literatures, I need to know the history. I don't.
Okay.
Literature evolves along with society.
Right.
Sometimes it's one step ahead. Sometimes it is even one step behind. So the way our society has evolved or not evolved, so literature has evolved or not evolved. The second part of this question, what was that?
It's the approaches adopted by
No, sorry. It had to do with impact of literature. How has it helped?
Okay. Yes.
Correct?
Yes, please.
So, art doesn't ever claim to help. I cannot ever say that because I wrote Avinash, someone out there was so affected that they rushed their own son to the psychologist. No, it's not 1 + 1 is 2. Somewhere, hopefully, there is change. And as I said, literature, along with dialogue, open dialogue, conversation, advance of medicine, all of these things will contribute towards helping.
Yes. So one interesting question about translation, ma'am. Zinya Sen Gupta is asking, when it comes to translations of Marathi literature, in your personal experience, have you observed the readers engaging with the stories any differently than, say, in, other or English, or the same thing in English?
First of all, I need to know how the Marathi readers of the text which I'm translating have responded. First, I must know that. I only know how I respond. So I will put myself in the place of all readers. Now, why do I translate? I translate because I love what I'm translating. I do not translate out of compulsion. Nobody can say to me, translate this. I say it to myself. And so it is out of sheer love for the text. And since I love the text, I want to recreate a text that will be equally loved by people who read it in the target language. And then when I do hear from people that they have enjoyed a translation of mine, then I say, fine, now I own that translation because it has engaged a new readership, the one for which I took the trouble to translate this text, which I loved. So the love is transferred. That's my job done.
Right. There is one more translation question. How should the translator think about providing context while translating? Should they be completely faithful to the original text versus help making translation slightly easier? Would you like to say?
Easier? No, wait. Okay. When you translate,
Yes.
if your original text is an easy text, your translation is an easy text. By easy, you mean accessible, readily accessible to the reader. So if the original is that, then I can't make my translation difficult for the reader to access.
Yeah.
But I think what the question means is the context that is contained in certain words or expressions. I'll give you an example. In Maharashtra, when a visitor is taking her leave, and the hostess says, wait, she goes in and brings dahi, and she puts a spoonful of dahi into the person's palm, which he has. Now, if I say, and so she brought dahi and put it in her guest's palm, what sense will that make to the reader in English?
Right.
Because this is a custom.
Right.
And for the reader of the original text, you don't have to say what it means. They know it means come back soon. So somewhere the translator has to work that context into her translation, because by and large, we don't like to carry footnotes. It's a very academic practice and doesn't fit with fiction.
Right.
So yes, you need to sometimes explain the context, but you have to be very clever, because you don't want the sentence to become unwieldy.
Right.
You still want it to be easy to read. So the translator always has to be cleverer than the original writer.
Right.
We are very clever translators.
Yes.
They have to remember that, because otherwise we are put down. We are hardly ever mentioned.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have to have pride in what we do.
Any other questions from participants? Any viewers?
There is actually one question. There are several questions in the Q&A box.
Okay.
Actually,
I think we've read out most of these.
did we speak about the intergenerational trauma question that came in here in the Q&A box? Or could I read that out? Sure.
Yeah, please do that.
So, what are your thoughts on the intersection of mental health and identity? And then it moves forward.
Slowly, please.
Okay, so I'll be sorry about that. So this is a longer question. So the
Okay.
first part of the question is, what are your thoughts on the intersection of mental health and identity? The next part of that question is, the discourse around intergenerational trauma and systemic oppression related mental illness has been very powerful lately. Do you think there has been apt representation of this in literature?
But I have to admit that I do not understand the question, because it's a complex question and there are a whole lot of academic concepts which have entered into it, with which I'm not necessarily familiar. So
yeah, that's fine.
I don't think I can answer.
There is questions about autism, and I don't think we will discuss any mental health issue in detail here. Or it is what ma'am has written is how it how people around them react or what happens to them. So we're not medical or psychiatric professionals to be saying anything on all this. But if there is anything that
Shefali, can I ask a question here?
Yeah, please go
because your book, People on the Roof, covers intergenerational issues. Would you want to touch upon that? Because, the entire house, like, People on the Roof, the house being called Pagal Khana because the mum was mentally ill, though the elder child was normal. And then again, the second child did suffer from autism. Then this intergenerational identity. So, the question which was asked, maybe you would just want to touch upon it and say how you have covered that in your book in literature.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Mansi. I think I don't know what to say about intergenerational thing. I mean, the mother has a issue, and her second child has an issue, and this child grows up with two people like that in the family, and she forms her own ideas about what is happening to the mother and how the people around them are reacting to them. And it is only later that when she meets people who are living active lives, who are going to college, like the person who is blind, her classmate, that she realizes that something can be done to help them live a better life. And she does that. And in the end, as you know, Tara is doing useful work, and they all fine. So does that answer your question, Mansi?
Sort of. Maybe it was actually for the person who asked that question. I hope that it answers her questions.
Not very clear what they want to know.
Yeah, probably they want to know whether such literature does exist. I think it is coming out now when, in English maybe. But like I said, my knowledge of Indian literature actually, when it comes to mental health, was limited to Shanta Tai's works. And, the moment when I thought about the panel, it was Shanta Tai's works that came to my mind, that Avinash and Rita Welinkar have. And to be honest, Avinash has really helped me during the lockdown to stay sane and in my own way, to just stay centered. And I actually wanted to ask Shanta Tai this one last question, is that both of these works came out in Marathi first, and then it was translated to English by you. So I wanted to ask you, what was the motive behind, wanting to translate both of these works into English?
Well, frankly, I wasn't motivated to do it at all, because it's a lot of work. And if you've written a novel or a play, and while you're writing it, a few other ideas have occurred to you and you want to go on to them so that you do another creative work, you aren't really wanting to translate. But in both cases, publishers asked me to translate. They were interested in publishing the translations. So as far as Avinash was concerned, the play hasn't been published in Marathi.
Okay.
Yeah, it was performed. It was performed in Marathi, Hindi, Kannada, Malayalam, but there's no Marathi script for it. It was actually Sunil Shanbag who spoke about the play to Naveen Kishore of Seagull Books. And they were doing a lot of translations of plays. And so I was approached to translate it into English. So actually, a few months ago, a Marathi group wanted the Marathi script. And I said, I have nothing. Here's the English if you want it. But then they found the Marathi script from some old group which had done it. So,
but thank you for doing that. Otherwise,
also was the publisher who said, please tell us.
Yeah, we would not have had access to it if you're not translated. So yeah, very, very nice discussion. Is it time to wrap up, Mansi?
Yes, it is. Thank you both for this wonderful session. Thank you for that little trivia on Avinash. I always thought that it was published in Marathi and then was written in English.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Shanta ma'am, for a very enlightening, enjoyable.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for reading both the things.
No. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us, Shanta ma'am and Shefali. Thank you so much.